So once the world is aware that Hitler and Stalin have made this non-aggression or Nazi-Soviet pact, we become aware September 1939 when Hitler invades Poland, and the Soviet Union will also invade Poland because they've agreed to dice it up between the two of them. Major events during the war, the Axis powers is Germany, Italy, and Japan. All you need to do is think of them dancing a jig all over Europe. Jig, J-I-G. And then the Allied powers is going to be Britain, France, Soviet Union, and later the United States is going to join. We'll join in 1941 after Pearl Harbor is being attacked. France is going to cease to be a power because of the simple fact that you're going to have them called Vichy France, which is basically a puppet government that the Nazis are controlling. So once Hitler gets going, he takes over a lot of places. He takes over France, and then Britain isn't really able to do a whole lot to actually stop the German advancement. But then when Germany actually attacks Britain in the aerial assault over the Battle of Britain, the British will stop the German war machine. The Soviets will stop them at the Battle of Stalingrad. So the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Britain, those are considered two turning points in the European theater of war. In 1944, with the help of the U.S., the British, the French, the Canadians, the Americans, they're all going to land at the Battle of Normandy. So the beaches of Normandy, D-Day, France. We're going to all land there, and we're going to go ahead and free Vichy France. We're going to free France from the Nazi control. The Germans are going to try a last counterattack, a counteroffensive move, and it's going to be the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans are going to lose. Britain has ordered his soldiers to win at all costs. What happens is the Allies, the United States, is going to allow the German army to get into the actual lines of the United States. So they let them get in, and then they crush them. They go ahead and let them get in between their lines, and then the other parts of the lines, they just kind of sandwich them in. And so May 1945, there's a victory over Europe. This is VE Day, and so the United States with its allies have won World War II. War in the African area. Germany and Italy, they had been in Africa. They've been trying to take over the British and the French lands in North Africa. Britain is going to send troops there to reclaim their land. And so the Desert Fox, General Rommel, who is known for his mastery of the tank divisions, he is going to give the British a run for their money in North Africa. And eventually, General Montgomery is going to go ahead and kind of defeat Rommel. Rommel gets pulled out of Africa and saved to go fight in Germany. So he'll fight us again at Normandy, France. The war in the Pacific area, which is the Japanese front area, the Japanese do expand. They control China, Korea, French Indochina, which is Vietnam, the Dutch East Indies, the Philippines, etc. Basically, they take everything out there in the Pacific because they want Asia for Asians, right? But not really for all Asians, just the Japanese. Because they believe they're racially superior to everybody else. So December 1941, they attack Pearl Harbor. Stupid move. And so the United States will declare war on the Axis powers. You got to imagine that they probably hit their head afterwards. So island hopping campaign is going to be done by General Douglas MacArthur, a U.S. general, and he's going to decide that we should take the weaker fortified islands in the Pacific area and then get to the Japanese mainland, which is basically hell on earth. Trying to get very, very close to Japan is bad. And so the Battle of Iwo Jima and the Battle of Okinawa, these are going to be two very severe battles in which the U.S. has huge fatalities. And so when the atomic bomb is ready, it's ready, and Oppenheimer tells President Truman that the bomb's ready. And so we go ahead and drop two. We drop one on Hiroshima, and then we drop another one on Nagasaki. And so in August 1945, the Allies win the war in the Pacific. During the Holocaust, there is a final solution, and that's the SS's plan, Himmler's plan, and this is to eradicate Jews from the world. And remember, Hitler's been blaming them for all the problems, so Hitler's plan was to always eliminate the actual Jews, so he always wanted to eliminate them from Europe. He wants to eliminate them from the world. And part of the reason is that every time he takes Jewish land, he gives it to the Germans. So he always gives it to his Germans. There's concentration camps, and the concentration camps, they have work camps there, and they're basically going to go ahead and put a human being to work until there is just nothing left of the human being. Anybody that is considered undesirables goes to the camps. So if Hitler didn't like you, if he thought that he needed to get rid of you, you're going to go to the camps. So Jews, Greek Orthodox, the Gypsies, who are the Romanians, the communists, handicapped, homosexuals, anyone Hitler didn't like, anyone he wanted to get rid of. If you oppose the Nazi Party, you go. The extermination camps, there's some work camps, but they actually are extermination camps. People are sent there to be killed. They gas people, they execute people, they do experiments. A lot of sick, really sick stuff goes on. The Germans are particularly interested in twins because they understand the genetic code. They understand that the identical twins have an identical DNA. And so Mengele, Dr. Mengele, if you want to call him a doctor, he's going to be the one who is actually leading most of the experiments on the actual concentration camp victims. So technology during the war, there's atomic bombs, you get peace negotiations and settlements. So here's a couple you need to know. You need to know the Tehran Conference. This is going to be where actually Stalin comes and he meets with Churchill and he meets with FDR, so the big three meet. And the Allied powers have decided that they're going to go ahead and liberate France first. Stalin is upset. His Red Army, his Communist Army, is being really kind of beaten and pulverized by the German army. So he needs another front lifted. He needs another front opened up so that his Red Army doesn't have to take on the entire German army. So the Germans are going to have to divide up their army again. And so the Soviet Union agrees that they're going to go ahead and keep pushing through Eastern Europe, and they're going to open up that Eastern Front. And Britain and France are going to go ahead and attack at France and alleviate him. Because once we start attacking here, Germany's going to have to take some of their troops off the Eastern Front and get them out there to the Western Front. At the Yalta Conference, you're going to have, again, the United States, Britain, and Soviet Union all meeting again. The Soviets are going to agree that they're now going to help the U.S. fight the Japanese because the war is ending in Europe. There's a decision to go ahead and partition Germany into zones, and each zone is going to be controlled and operated by one of the big three, and then you have the neutral, and France will also control one. At the Potsdam Conference, this is the one where Truman comes in, and because FDR is dead, and so this is Truman's kind of first conference. And so the Soviets are going to agree that they will control Poland, and they're going to allow free elections in Poland. So they're going to allow the Polish people to decide whether they want to be communist or whether they want to have a democracy. Of course, Stalin's not going to go with this because this is anti-Soviet. This is not, what he believes in. And there's going to be a decision to go ahead and permanently keep Austria and Germany away from each other. So just kind of like after World War I with the Treaty of Versailles. Significance and consequences of World War II. The U.S. occupies Japan. We're going to establish a constitutional monarchy. And MacArthur is going to lead those efforts, so it will be a limited monarchy. They're going to have a parliamentary style government. Korea is going to be divided by the U.S. and the Soviets, so because the Soviets do agree to help us out in the Pacific, he is coming in through North Korea. So the Red Army, they move into North Korea, into the North Korean peninsula, and they kind of, distribute some pamphlets, tell people about communism, and so Kim Jong-il is going to keep North Korea as a communist country, and then South Korea will be a democracy. China's going to gain their freedom from Japan, but they're going to start falling into this war, civil war, and it's going to be between the nationalists who are led by Kershenk, who is a U.S.-backed leader, and the communists are going to be led by Mao Zedong. And basically, Mao is going to get the peasants, the local people's support. And Kershenk, he's not going to really have their support because we're giving him a lot of money. The U.S. is giving him a lot of money, and he's really kind of wasting it. It's not going to the Chinese people. It's really going to him and his supporters. And so Mao is going to have a lot of grounds with the peasants because he's basically going to say the government's corrupt. And he is right. The government is corrupt. But, he's talking about replacing it with a communist government. So America's not going to like him. The Soviets are going to occupy most of Eastern Europe, and they're going to cause this Eastern Bloc. And the Eastern Bloc is just the satellite states of the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union has a bunch of Eastern countries in Europe that they're going to control and dominate really until the fall of the Soviet Union. The Nuremberg trials are going to start, and the Nuremberg trials is basically a prosecution. It's a political prosecution, a judicial prosecution of war criminals that were involved in the Holocaust. So the SS, the stormtroopers, the ones who are actually leading the concentration camps, we're going to go ahead and go after them. A lot of people feel like it's a puppet show because not that many of them actually get convicted of war crimes, and there's a heck of a lot more that ran the camps that don't ever go up for trial. But what it basically proves is that during a war, just because you say I'm following orders, which is exactly what these war criminals did, is they said, well, we were following orders. We were told to put people in gas chambers. Well, you have a brain. You can think. You can say no to the orders. And so at the Nuremberg trials, people are shocked. They're appalled because they're hearing all this horrible stuff that the Nazis did in the concentration camps. But it's really not that many Nazis that actually get persecuted. A lot of them go into Argentina. The Perones of Argentina are going to allow the Nazis to come in. They allow them to buy their way in because the Nazis take gold from Germany and they make haste and they get out of Germany before it collapses. They go to Argentina and they set up a new Nazi government down there with Perones, with Juan Perón and his wife Evita, basically giving them a thumbs up because they paid them to get in. There's a place in Argentina where they do speak German, and it's a very fortified German area, like barbed wire, armed guards, you name it. So the end of the Western European dominance over the world. So no more empires, no more U.S., Britain, France dominating the world. Colonies are going to start pushing for more independence than ever before. So you're going to see nationalistic movements, particularly in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The United Nations is going to be the new world organization that maintain peace. And there's going to be a shift in the world power. The U.S. and the Soviet Union are the two dominant world powers after World War II. And it's going to be those two that will fight the Cold War. You're getting ushering in of the Cold War, and it's because the U.S. and the Soviet Union hate each other. The U.S. is going to be fighting for democracy, and the Soviet Union is going to be fighting for communism everywhere. Why do you need to know this? There are all kinds of questions that are typically about causes, events, and consequences of war. And World War I and World War II are huge wars during period 6, which is 20% of the exam. So the nation that rose to power during World War I but declined the power during World War II was Japan. Okay, so when you look at Japan during World War I, they really kind of start building up their empire. World War II, they don't have the power anymore afterwards. The U.S. rises to power in World War I as well, but they maintain their power after World War II. Okay. We're going to look at the rise of the Soviet Union in the next part when we look at part 6, period 6.